Greetings, esteemed viewers, and welcome back to another edition of my Mass Effect 3 multiplayer guides. Today we're going to have another look at the Collector SMG. Now, it is true that I did a video in the past on the Collector SMG, but that was much more of an overview than anything else. Today, as the title suggests or suggested, I wish to do a comprehensive guide, a definitive guide, if you will. So before I proceed, let me of course thank my teammate Fennicus, whom you all know by now. He's quite famous, he's quite the star, so thank you, Fennicus, for helping me make this demonstration video. Now, the Collector SMG is a ultra-rare submachine gun, for those of you who don't know about it yet. It is the only ultra-rare submachine gun. Every other ultra-rare weapon belongs to some other class. There are no other ultra-rare submachine guns. It is also a submachine gun that is most optimally used by casters. Let me explain why. I'll get into that in a bit. The way to optimally use this, and this is in part the reason I'm making this video guide, because there have been a lot of questions posed regarding the Collector SMG. How do you use it? How do you make the best use of this weapon? The best use of this weapon is to be made by using it in between casting your powers, power spamming. With this weapon, ideally you'll have a very low cooldown, and because of that you'll be able to use your powers frequently. So in the video you see me using warp or overload, and in between firing the Collector SMG. Sometimes I use warp as a debuffer, and then I empty almost the entire clip, and so on and so forth. Classes with even lower cooldowns, like maybe Quarian, female Quarian engineer with cryoblast, can use it even more effectively in that regard. So the way you want to use it is casting your powers, and then in between those casts, in between the cooldown, that's when you want to fire it. In particular, it's very effective with the debuff powers like cryoblast or warp or snap freeze. In particular, as far as casters are concerned, it's my suggestion, based on my own personal experience with the weapon, that you make use of a tech-based caster more so than a biotic. It's good on biotics, but I think the tech-based casters make the best use of it. Lots of tech explosions. And by now I have a lot of experience with this weapon. Let me tell you, it might be my subjective observation or opinion, but it sure as hell seems like this weapon makes use of ammo powers far, far more efficiently than most weapons. To that end, let me talk about the ammo powers. You ideally want to be using one of the three elemental powers, namely fire, lightning, or ice. Specifically, of course, I'm talking about incendiary, disruptor, or cryo ammo. All those are quite good, although cryo takes a semi-distant third there. Incendiary and disruptor are equally good depending on the enemy faction you're facing. Against collectors and reapers, you'll want to take incendiary, and against Cerberus or Geth, it's ideal to take disruptor ammo on the Collector SMG. It makes very, very good use of this. Let's talk about the weapon mods. The weapon mods on the Collector SMG are very straightforward. There really are only a total of 3 choices in my opinion. One is an absolute prerequisite. You cannot forego it. It's simply not possible not to take it. And why? Because you need the mod for the magazine size, to increase the magazine size. If you do not take the mod for the magazine size, even at level 10, you will have an incredibly small clip with very little ammo, and you won't be able to make use of it effectively. No one will. Even guys like Jay can't do that. So you have to take the magazine size. That's really essential for this weapon. The other 2 choices are, of course, somewhat optional, but I really wouldn't forego it. You want something that damages armor. The Collector SMG already has a 50% extra armor bonus, although you don't really notice it very much, in my opinion. But you want some armor penetration. I don't use any weapon without armor penetration usually, so the choice is logical. Extended barrel for extra damage, take AP or drill, or, and the better choice, because you want to use that elemental ammo, incendiary, disruptor, cryo, the high velocity barrel, which will negate 90% of armor defenses and give you 65% centimeters of penetration, which is plenty for guardian shields and thin cover. It's fine. So ideally, one is the prerequisite, the extended magazine, and the other, I would strongly suggest the high velocity with some kind of elemental ammo power. Now, something about the collector SMG mechanics. Yes, you can run out of ammo, obviously. It has a limited size. In the video, you'll see a couple of times I'm running out of ammo, unfortunately. And that's because, in part, because the collectors have so much well, health, barriers, and armor. Often against Praetorians, I can't finish them off with a single clip. And sometimes that can be useful. You might want to take cover or throw a warp or an overload, and that's nice. But one suggestion I would make, and they have buffed it recently, I'll talk about the buffs towards the end, is that it really needs an increased basic ammo capacity. It's very irritating coming up against strong, powerful bosses because you run out of ammo before they die, which is an issue, in my opinion. But if that happens, you have two options. The collector SMG has unlimited ammo, but that advantage, the infinite ammo, which of course was very fortuitous and useful on Condor. Because Condor is notoriously bad for ammo boxes. Collector SMG, very important here. You should always try not to overheat it. Why? If you overheat it, you have to wait 3 seconds. If you're in the middle of a firefight, that means you have to take cover. You'll miss kills, or you might most likely you get shot. I mean, you're not going to have a lot of options. If that happens and you can't wait, you can always hit a thermal clip pack that will instantly start regenerating the ammo, although it will be slow. It'll have the same regeneration rate. That's another buff I would suggest, having a faster regen rate for the ammo. So that's the main disadvantage of the collector SMG. It runs out of ammo. Now, I have it on good authority. Lord Byron, High Lord of Game Mechanics and Master of Number Crunching, that the collector SMG actually is not doing the damage that the stats would expect you to do. Its stats put it along almost the lines of the Hurricane to some degree. And it's, according to Lord Byron, it's actually doing something somewhere around 40% less damage than it's intended. Now, we could all imagine what a beast this weapon would be if it had 40% extra damage. I don't think BioWare is going to do that. But let me briefly talk about the debate on whether the collector SMG sucks or it doesn't. Yes, most people are opinionated, and most people either think it's horrible or it's very good. I'm of the opinion that it's very good at high levels to level 10. That needs to be stated. The one poster on BioWare made a very interesting commentary regarding the Hurricane, and I will repeat paraphrasing what he said. I believe it was Mega Beast. If you watch this Mega Beast, I apologize for not remembering the rest of your name and possibly misquoting you. I'm paraphrasing that. With all the buffs that the Hurricane received, it kind of set the gold standard for SMGs. Every SMG is compared to it. The question is the Hornet, is the Locust, and so on and so forth as good as the Hurricane? That's always the question. And likewise, of course, with the collector SMG. Even though collector SMG is a completely different animal, despite it being a ultra rare. Now, the Hurricane does a lot more damage, but it has tons more recoil and it's tons less accurate. Even the best players, even the best, perhaps the best is Jayhawksatron, cannot at medium to long range, or certainly long range land headshots because the spread is just too large. What the collector SMG excels at is its unparalleled accuracy. I'd argue that perhaps only the Locust is more accurate. It has very little recoil, and so you can fire at extremely long ranges and still get pretty accurate shots, particularly headshots. That's the advantage it has over the Hurricane, in addition to, well, you don't ever have to worry about ammo. I have a particular issue with the Hurricane, because my Hurricane has not been upgraded for over 5 months now, so I've kind of given up on the Hurricane. But yeah, and that, of course, on a map like Condor, you're not going to run out of ammo because, well, your ammo is infinite. That said, let me talk about the buffs it needs. 3 suggestions. One I think is obligatory, the others are more or less optional at this point in time. BioWare did give it a 10% damage buff, but it needs more. First buff. Absolutely required, the base clip size needs to be increased by at least 25 to 30%. At least, maybe even 40 or 50. It's important to be able to keep on firing. The particle rifle, for example, is, I think, makes much more efficient. It has a use of ammo. It seems to have a larger clip size compared to, say, the Collector SMG. I don't view the Collector SMG as a sidearm. It's a primary weapon, primary arm for casters, and as such, it should be able to be fired for long periods of time. I think it needs another damage buff. If BioWare does not want to restore or put the to give the Collector SMG its true glory in terms of damage, it says in the hidden files, give it at least another 10 to 20% damage. It would be very helpful. And finally, in addition to those two suggestions, I would say make the ammo regenerate at least 50% more quickly than it does at the current moment in time. That would be very useful. I don't see this as a sidearm. It is a primary weapon for casters, and as such, casters don't. Let's remember, weapons kill faster than most things in the game, or ideally they should. Powers are basically backups, or they help you kill things faster. But most of the time, with very few exceptions, maybe Flamer, your weapon is doing the killing, and because of that, you want to be able to have a weapon that can issue forth extended fire. And if it can't do that, which is sometimes the problem with the Collector SMG, I struggled against the Praetorians trying to empty an entire clip and running out. That's what it should do. Now, I did try this on Platinum a few days ago solo with the T.Sentinel Reapers, and I wiped on wave 8, and it took forever, and it wasn't worth it. This is another reason. It's an ultra rare. It's the only ultra rare submachine gun. It needs more buffs. Any of those 3 buffs would be great. All 3 of them would be fantastic. Let's make this Platinum viable, in addition to being very, very gold viable. It's excellent on gold, but all of a sudden, with all the boss spams, it doesn't work on Platinum, and it's an ultra rare. Let me briefly talk about the kinds of classes that make the best use of it. Well, T.Sentinel, in my opinion, and I've kind of studied this because I've tried it out on a lot of different classes, makes the best use of it, and why? If you spec the T.Sentinel appropriately, as I do, in my opinion, with weapon damage, all the passives and weapon and headshots, you will be a Collector SMG master wielder. Why? Well, T.Sentinel has if you spec it right, 37.5% weapon damage bonus passive, so that's massive. You are on par with a non-infiltrator, a non-Geth infiltrator, Geth with Hunter mode, very, very close. In addition, you have 10% more headshot bonus because of the passive. The other thing is, most classes, this is of course the name of the game with this weapon, because you run out of ammo so quickly, it's actually a disadvantage to have a rate of fire bonus, such as on the Destroyer, the Turian Soldier, or even the Geth. Well, the Geth Engineer is an exception. I'll get into in a second. So yes, you have a very high weapon damage bonus. You have headshot bonuses, and you have a normal rate of fire, which works to the advantage of the Collector SMG. Finally, you have the Turian passives. Now, it is true the Collector SMG has very low recoil, but it still has some recoil. That 55% stability of Spectrite will completely negate that recoil. You will be firing in a near straight line like a laser. Hands down the reason why it's the best wielder for this weapon, in my opinion. Second best, and not too far off, is the Geth Engineer properly spec'd. You'll get the accuracy, which is very, very nice. It makes it even more accurate, but you will have nothing to compensate for the recoil, and you will have 50% rate of fire, which can be good. I mean, you will kill things slightly more quickly, but then you can run out. But you power spam in between. That's how you work it. And of course, all the other classes, particularly tech classes, very good on a female Quarian Engineer. Very good on the original human engineers, even good on the Vorcha. So those are the kinds of classes you want to be looking at when using it. Those two, namely the T.Sentinel and the Geth Engineer, are the preeminent users of the Collector SMG, in my opinion. Weapon classes, I probably would avoid it unless you're just looking for a challenge. There are much better choices and many more choices for weapons-based classes. I would not recommend using the Collector SMG on those classes. Well, that is pretty much the weapon guide. I think it's pretty comprehensive in a nutshell. Everything you wanted to know about the Collector SMG and how to optimally use it. If there are any remaining questions, feel free to post it in the thread or on the video itself. But as always, thanks for watching. I appreciate the comments, the views, and I wish all of you a pleasant evening and pleasant afternoon or pleasant morning, depending on what your time zone is. Everyone have a good one and take care. All the best.